Okay, today I'd like to talk about a very rare pattern. And none of you will ever have heard of this pattern, but it's interesting that something that no one has heard of can be as great as it really is. There's 2,200 American sterling patterns. Some are popular, some are not. Sometimes we say, why is this pattern popular? Why is this one not? A good example is Fairfax. Fairfax sells like crazy. It's just a very simple looking pattern. There's probably 50 patterns that look something like Fairfax. Most of them don't sell at all. Good comparison is Hepplewhite. Very interesting pieces in Hepplewhite. Good looking pattern, nice weight, nice balance. Doesn't sell at all. If a macaroni and server came up in Hepplewhite, it'd probably be $200. If one came up in Fairfax, it would be sky's the limit, So anyway, there's not, sometimes we just don't understand why a pattern is popular and another one is not. And that brings us to Knickerbocker Etched. Okay, so the pattern started in the year 1870. And it was a pattern where they took the pieces, they dipped them in wax, they cut a design, and then they put them in acid, and the acid created the pattern. Okay, very, very tough method. 10 years later, in 1880, Tiffany came up with their famous lap-over edge. Same idea, same method. It's viewed as one of the greatest patterns ever, maybe the greatest pattern ever. How did Gorham, 10 years earlier, come up with this pattern? And, there's virtually nothing known about it. So, my story about this pattern is, I had a customer, Dr. Paul Ebert, who loved to find and collect obscure things. And many years ago, he asked me, after doing Francis I and Six Flowers and Blossom by Jensen and many other tough patterns, what pattern should I collect? And I looked through the books and I said, I've got this interesting pickle fork in this pattern called Knickerbocker Etched. Why don't you try collecting that? So, through the years, I'd be watching at shows. If I could find anything, I would, and he would generally buy it. The people who sold me the items generally wouldn't know what it was. So, this collection behind me, this giant set of 250 pieces, are what he worked on over the next at least 20 years. These knives, they're wonderful. They're huge. They're 11 inches long with beautiful flowers cut into the handles. Compares very well with lap-over. But here's the rest of the story. Okay, here's a fish server. It's got big fish in the waves with cattails on the blade. It's beyond anything you can find in lap-over. Here's a vegetable spoon. It has peas in the pod on the branch in the bowl. Super, super piece. Here's a berry spoon. Beautiful raspberries, acid etched in the bowl. All these pieces have great weight. Here's a salad set. It has Japanese figures worked into the pattern on the top and ivory bowls and tines on the bottom. And here's a fish serving fork with lobsters among the seaweed above the tines. All different motifs, all exciting. Weight is wonderful. How did this pattern fail? We really don't know, but we suspect there were two factors. One, it was probably very expensive, and so not many people bought it. And second of all, there was a tremendous depression during the 1870s. Many of the silver companies almost went out of business. Maybe Gorham just didn't give it enough of a chance due to the challenging economic conditions. The most interesting thing about the pattern, however, to show how really, really rare it was, is that over the time that he collected, I found pieces all over the country. Many people knew I was looking for it. I found them East Coast, West Coast, center of the country, you name it. And I would say that 70% of the pieces that I found had the same acid etched monogram on the back. So this group scattered to the four winds, but we have brought them back together, and the fact that it's mainly one monogram means how many sets of this were actually made. Someday there'll be articles written about this pattern. Antiques Magazine has an article that they're going to publish, and maybe some other people with the pattern will come out. I talked to one in the last 10 years who said he had a small set that he was working on putting together. You contrast this with many patterns where there's thousands and thousands of customers. Here, as far as I know, this is the only big set there is.